Welcome, everyone, to Authors on the Air. I am thrilled today to have two very important people with me, Dan and Ruthie, who are readers of my guest, Matt Coyle. So, for those of you who don't know Matt, he writes the Rick Cahill series, and this is his new book, Doom Legacy. We thought it'd be interesting because Matt has said to me before he likes talking to readers at book signing events. He has a good time with it. So I thought we'd go ahead and kick off with one of a reader who became Matt's friend, and that's Dan, who's sitting next to me. Welcome, Dan.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be on. I
I'm
appreciate it.
thrilled you're here. So how did you get to meet Matt, and how did you find out about his books?
Well, I met Matt at a podcast event slash fundraiser event, and we sat together just randomly. And we're having dinner or lunch, whatever it was. I think it was dinner. And I just asked Matt what he did, and he told me. And being a reader, I was embarrassed to say I hadn't read any of his books at that point. And so I went home.
Many of you out there.
I went, well, actually, I bought a book that night or that day, and he signed it and went home and read it. And then soon thereafter, appendicitis hit me.
Oh.
And so I went to the hospital in between waiting and post surgery when I could go home. I think I read 3 or 4 of his next ones.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because I had the free time, and I obviously, and from there it just became, what's Rick going to do next? What's going to happen to Rick next? I was hooked.
There you go. So, Ruthie, I knew that you liked Matt because every time I'd post about one of his books, you would always say, "Oh, I got to go get that now." And I know that last year Matt sent you a signed copy.
He did, yes.
How did you find out a bit? Was it through me posting, or had you already read Matt's books?
I think it was through you, Pam, because yes, and thank you. But I think it was through your postings, absolutely. And then I took a read and I got hooked.
You got hooked on, and I think I sent you a few books too, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Because you like to read on a Kindle also?
I do. I read on the Kindle. I'm a slow reader, and I like to have 2 or 3 books going at a time. That's why the Kindle's so handy.
It certainly is. And I'm a fast reader, but I still have 3 or 4 different books going all at once.
Oh.
So, Ruthie, you said it's been a while since you've been to a book signing. I know that you are your mother's caregiver, and so that probably limits a lot of the times you can do. But suppose you and Matt are sitting across the table from each other and you're discussing Doom Legacy. Is there a question that you want to ask him?
There is. It's been burning for the last couple books. And it is, how do you know so much about CTE and write so poignantly about it?
Well, I've done some research. I've actually, being a sports fan, football fan in particular, been aware of it for years. I mean, there was that I was aware of it before the Will Smith movie, which, time flies. It's been a long time, I guess now. Probably been 8-10 years, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I've done research online. I've talked to a couple doctors, but in terms of poignancy, I've been writing this character. It took me 10 years to get published. I've been writing Rick for 20 years. So I've been in his head for a long time, and he feels like a member of the family. So I feel what he feels very deeply, and thankfully, although I just had a friend tell me he thinks that, he's been pre-diagnosed that he has CTEs, which is very sad. But I mean, he's doing fine now. He's my age, which is kind of old, but when you're a writer and you become a certain age, like I am, you've experienced quite a lot of, a fair amount of grief in life, loss in life, and emotional things that have happened to you. So even though I haven't lived an exciting life like Rick, but I can convey the sense of loss and consternation and fear that all humans do throughout their lives. So I try to put that fiction into other fiction. I mean, that reality into, the fiction that Rick is going through in his stories. But thank you for the compliment.
Sure.
Dan,
very upbeat material I write about.
Dan, what would you like to ask Matt about anything in the book or his writing style or anything?
Oh, I've got a bunch of questions to
Oh,
ask.
good.
um, there's two parts about Rick that I'm fascinated about, and I don't even know that we've spoken about it, Matt, is number one, the genesis of Rick, who he is, where he's come from and all that. I'm not sure I know that. If you've told me, I apologize. And then the second piece, which is the piece I love about Rick over the series, is how flawed he is. He is not some Hollywood glitzy, James Bond era type guy. I mean, this guy's got some issues. And I'm wondering how far have you ever pulled back from even going darker and deeper into those flaws?
Good question. Regarding his genesis, it evolved. Like I said, it took me 10 years to get published, thankfully, because if somehow by some miracle I'd gotten published before all those revisions on yesterday's Echo, I don't think wherever I am right now in a career, I don't think I'd be there because I don't think the books would be as good because it just took me a long time to get to that level. So when I first started writing Rick, it was much more autobiographical. I spent 10 years in the restaurant business. Although when I started writing the book, I was probably 10 years removed from being in the restaurant business. But so I mean, the whole idea of managing a restaurant and all that wasn't fiction to me. It's true to me. And so I was putting a lot of my own life into the book, and it was a lot lighter than it ended up becoming, and clearly not as exciting, interesting. And I was at the very first writers conference I went to. I think was California, Southern California Writers Conference. Still going today. They do it in L.A. and San Diego, and I think used to do it in the desert. I'm not sure if they still go out there. And a great writer in San Diego named Mr. Writer named Alan Russell had the misfortune of reading parts of my first draft, which back then it was a read and critique that goes on at these conferences. And it was 30 pages. They never do that anymore. You'd be lucky if you do 10 pages. When I got my agent, it was 5 pages. But he had to read 30 pages of what was really probably a first draft. Poor guy. A first draft from just out of nowhere, right? And he said, he can write, but it's too autobiographical. And I really took that to heart. And the further I went away from my own life and fictionalized things and thought deeper, the better it became. And during an early revision, out of the ether, out of my subconscious, a line came to me, which was the first time I saw her, she made me remember and she made me forget, which became the first sentence of the book, the first line of the book. And from that, I realized, well, this guy's much darker than I've been writing. He's really had a very difficult backstory, and I need to examine that. And that really opened things up for me for the character I was trying to develop. Got really dark and grimy, and like I said, God bless the ether, God bless my subconscious, because I think that really put me on the path to where I am now. The second part of your question: have I ever pulled back on abusing Rick? No.
Okay.
No. As you almost know personally, Dan, um, I don't think so. I had somebody ask me recently about story. Is there anything I wouldn't write about? And I think there's only one. Well, I wouldn't write about politics because it's too, the country's split down the middle. Why would I risk losing half my audience? But the other, I wouldn't write about children being abused or worse.
Yeah.
That I would stay away from. I think I've had hints of abuse from someone's backstory who's now an adult in the books. I think the first book probably, but I won't write about. I don't think I have to. Other people do it better than I do. It's not something I really want to think about. But anything else, pretty much fair game. I've explored a lot of different things and abused Rick quite a bit, and it's not over.
Ruthie, do you have another question for Matt?
Well, I do. Dan touched on a lot of it, and so did Matt in his answer, but it's more of an observation. Rick to me seems like a very old soul. And I'm just wondering, I'm a little bit of a fangirl of Rick because he is so very damaged. And I'm just wondering, do you have the whole series outlined?
Oh, extensively. I've
Okay.
taken years out. No, I don't at all. No. I'm a blank pager, also known as a seat of the pantser, a pantser. When I started, I did have a couple of rules when I started writing Rick way back 20 years ago. And one of them was he wasn't going to have a sidekick. Um, and I got rid of that after the first book when I was writing the second book, Night Tremors. And I realized I need another private investigator for one scene. I came up with this little sawed off piece of attitude named Moira, and she started talking, and I thought, wow, I need her, and Rick needed her, and so she's been in every book since. And I think that really saved the series because I think we were talking about how dark some of the Rick's internal. I don't really write graphic darkness or things like that. I say, as writing in first person, Rick has to discover what's happened, after the fact. So he's not always there for the dark violence, although he has he's endured some of it on the page. But I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
About how how damaged he is.
Yeah.
Ruthie
Well,
said she's a fangirl of him, but
right.
he seems so horribly damaged.
Right. Well, he is horribly damaged, but it was a sidekick thing.
Yeah.
because each book's gotten darker, and he's kind of morose, and he's very internal. It's first person you're in his head. So I needed a little lightness. And even though Moira is not particularly a light person, their banter, their kind of brother sister attitude has, I think, expanded Rick's personality. And I think it's shown the reader that if someone like Moira has really got her stuff together, very bright, great investigator, and a good person, if she cares about this guy, then maybe we'll overlook some of the bad decisions he makes and care about him too. The other rule I had was that everything had to count for Rick. Everything had to matter. Every injury had to carry over physically and emotionally. And so that made it darker and darker. Like he's carrying a lot of baggage, and the difficult part in writing each book is how much do I let new readers know about his backstory, and without ruining it for them if they pick up book 9 and they want to go back to 1 through 8. I don't want to tell them about the whole life, and plus I don't want to bore existing readers. But in terms of outlining him, no. I certainly didn't expect to give him CTE. I didn't expect to give a somewhat successful series, the protagonist of that series, have a debilitating, potentially life-threatening disease. But because of that rule I said, where everything had to matter, like every physical thing, every emotional thing had to matter. All the physical abuse he's taken, especially to his head, I didn't see any other way around it. I think that, like I said, a friend of mine thinks he's got CTE. He's been pre-diagnosed with it, and he was a cop himself. He's had a few concussions, and Rick has led a very physical life. I think there's a lot of us walking around that probably have this disease that don't know it, just through the physicality of our lives.
Interesting.
More upbeat stuff.
Interesting. Dan?
A couple of things. In Doom Legacy, Matt, I thought you handled the father-daughter issue as being a father of a daughter very well.
Good. Thank you.
Because, boy, I get emotional thinking about it. The other thing, I don't know how much you want to share, but doing your research, we had you had a question for me, and this group of people did not want to be acknowledged. They wanted to give advice without letting you know. Are there other industries outside of the special operations world like that you've run, or is just everybody really giving and open about what they can help you with?
Yeah, there was another Navy SEAL who I spoke with, I'd seen him on television before. He had a product, I'll just say that. And it took me, this is when I was writing my third book, Dark Fishers. I got to look at them because they all have 2-word titles. They're hard to remember. And I really took me a long time to be able to get through to this guy, for him to even talk to me. And he was very on guard. I think he thought maybe I was trying to get some point of view out, but I wasn't. I was just trying to get nitty gritty stuff about being a SEAL and the language and things like that. And he gave me some great insight, made the book better, but he specifically did not want to be mentioned in the book. And I said, well, I can mention your product and your business, and maybe some of the 14 people that read the book would be interested in it. And he said, no. So I kind of understood that because before we went live, we were talking a little bit about Jack Carr, the Navy SEAL who writes New York Times best-selling books, and he has to get all this. His stuff has to go to the DoD, I think, when he writes the books. Right. He gets it back with a lot of redacted stuff, and so I got that with the Navy SEAL. But then I was asking a very helpful woman in the banking industry. She gave me everything I needed, but also because I don't have a social what do you call it, the boxes, safe deposit box. I don't have a safe deposit box. I did get one for a while when I was doing this book, which I think was Blood Truth. But she gave me a lot of insight about how it works and if stuff's left there after somebody dies, all the stuff I needed. But I said, as I say to everybody, I can't give you any money or anything for helping me, but I would love to put your name in the acknowledgement. She goes, oh no, you can't do that. I'm thinking the banking industry, man, all this, dark stuff about safe deposit boxes. You gotta be careful. but you did bring up a good point, is that people are so giving. It's amazing. I've only had one person not be willing to give me any information, and probably because I didn't explain myself well enough when I got him on the phone. He was a rancher in Idaho, and he did not want anything to do with me. But everybody else is just so giving. They'll give you as much information as they can. I've talked to government officials and civilians, everybody. Everyone's so wanting to help. It's been an amazing experience. I'm really grateful.
Cool.
Ruthie, do you have another question for Matt?
I do. It's about writing in general. We talked a lot about your research and the autobiographical piece of this. Does writing in general energize or exhaust you?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you picked the right book I'm writing now to ask me that question. Yeah, it does both. I find it very difficult. There's a lot of writers who don't find it that hard, but there's some that do. I don't particularly feel. I think it's hard. It's not that much fun a lot of the time. I'm doing exactly what I was put on earth to do. I finally realized when I was in my early 40s that after telling people for 30 years I was going to write a book, when I started doing it, it was an epiphany for me. I was, whatever limited talents I had, writing is what I should be doing. And so that was a great thing that happened to me, but I hate it a lot of the time. I struggle with it. I love it as well. I absolutely love it. And after a good day of writing, I never feel better, but also there's nothing easier for me to not do than write. I'm very good at not writing. I can do that anytime. But I do, there's great rewards to it. And generally when I'm writing a book, and I think Dan knows, I know a mutual friend of ours, who we actually kind of met through, named Jeff Dotson, knows, is that I hate the book while I'm writing it. Jeff will call me up and ask me, hey, how's it going? I hate it. It's terrible. I'm a fraud. They're going to find out this time. It's crappy. And that's what, as I'm writing it. And then once I get done, I read that first draft and I go, oh, okay, not that bad. It's, I'm not embarrassed about it so much. And then with revision, it gets better. And I just sent the latest book I'm writing. I'm not done with it yet. I'm not done revising yet, but I wanted to get some to my agent because I'm writing in the dark for the first time ever. I'm not in a writer's group for the first time ever with this book. So I wanted my agent to look at what I'd written, and I went through it again, yet another revision, sent it off to her. And I thought, well, I am proud of this book. So that was a good feeling. And yet, as I've sent it to her and she's going on vacation and she's going to read my draft while she's on vacation as punishment, I guess. I don't know why I need to punish her, but after having sent it to her 2 days ago, I'm going through the first chapter and I've made like 16 changes already. Small things, but it's like it never ends. I heard Robert Cray say that the editing never ends, and I completely agree with that because every time if I'm start doing a book tour and I'm going to read to an audience, I edit you edit for time, but also I'm like, well, what? Why didn't I cut that 5 times when I've read this thing? Anyway, so it never ends. Yes, I love it very much. It's wonderful. It's my mistress. But thank you. That's a good question. I just don't
Thank
have
I
it.
want to just remind everyone the new book is called Doom Legacy. This is Rick Cahill. Which number?
9.
9.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have
Great
all of
book.
them back here in my mat file back there. You're on the main shelf.
I
You know,
appreciate it.
I got hooked on it when your publicist sent yesterday's Echo to me, and that was it. And, you know, I've
Long
read
time
every
ago.
single one since then. It's been a lot of fun. Our review group loves the books too. Final word, Dan, and from you, or question or final word?
Hopefully, this is an easy, quick one for you, Matt. Who chooses the titles?
I do. Yeah. And when I did yesterday's Echo, after a lot of consternation, my publisher liked the idea of a 2-word title. So that's what I have to come up with. And the second book, I sent it to them, some crappy title, and they said, this isn't very good. And I said, I know, make it better. And they go, no, you make it better. And because I'd worked on my second book. This is not a quick answer, but I'd worked on my second book for 2 years. It took me 2 years to get it out. And so for 2 years, I didn't have a title. I'm trying to come up with one. And once she said, I need it by a certain time, I had it in 15 minutes. But generally, it comes organically from the book. Sometimes it doesn't. And I think about what would make sense. And then I put it in the book to make it seem organically, because I like to have the title in the book. I don't know. Just I like
Ruthie?
Cool.
Question?
That was my question. I'm
Come on.
sorry.
I have to. I think back to when you and I first met, Matt. The first time I interviewed you, and I asked you the same thing. I asked you about the title, and you said, "Oh, it's the hardest part of the book that you."
Yeah.
And we joked about it, you know. But I have to say, the last ones are so on point and really steer where the book is going. Doom Legacy is a new book published by Ocean View. It is available in retailers everywhere. Matt is an award-winning writer, and I'm happy to say that he hosted a podcast in this network for a long time, and
1.5 years.
you are absolutely welcome to come back and guest host anytime you want. Ruthie Scollin, thank you so much for being with
Thank
us. I will see
you.
you on Facebook.
You will.
You know, sending you, I have to send you your flamingo cards. Oh, I wish I had them right here. I'd show them to you. Ruthie is a flamingo lover as well as a cat lover. So I happened to be in a store and saw a box of Christmas cards with flamingos on them. So I bought
You're
them.
too sweet.
Nice.
You're
Nice.
too good.
And Dan, I'm so glad that you came on. I know that you know Matt personally, and so it was kind of nice to have someone who knew a little bit more about him than say Ruthie does. So thank you for being with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You will find this podcast and the video cast anywhere where you get your podcast. I appreciate everyone for being with me tonight. I want to thank you all, and thank you, Mom and Dad. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.